Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I'm your host Zang, and once again I am joined by my wonderful co-host Ace. Ace, how you doing, man?
I promise we're not doing this again for the third time.
Definitely not the third time because I fell all over my words and then Riverside crashed. This has in no way been done 3 times now.
Not a shot.
Well, we were just saying before it crashed, I was saying we're at a great spot in the fantasy year where after doing 8 or 9 years of fantasy, I've found when I know all the top free agents, when I know the streaming sort of groups, the 5 or 6 guys that will stream, now all the players get their new headshots, and I kind of know who's on whose team. It's like we're in the year and we're going. So I'm really excited to get down to this one.
Yeah, it's a great time, like I was talking about as well before it crashed. Yeah. Apart from baseball, obviously, and we're in full baseball effect right now. You got the NHL playoffs, you got the NBA playoffs, so sports fans are certainly eating right now.
It's a good time. It's a good time of year for sure.
Absolutely.
Fresh baseball, all those good playoffs. Well, we'll get started with the matchup minute. We're just gonna skip right over this first one. Get to Almar Net versus no. I'm kidding. I'll take my L here.
Try.
I did lose the first annual Pod Bowl to Ace. Came into the week,
almost blew this game.
Annihilated me. I mean, 6 whole points. It was just a total blowout. No, you called it out as your matchup to watch last week. That was a great call. This was a fun one. Low scoring to start, and then I kind of took the lead there for a bit, and you came back, and it did end up 423 to 417.
So how much did you pay Tanner Hook?
Oh my God!
Just absolutely throw that game and give up 10 earned runs.
Called up my guy AC, told him to throw it, and it just wasn't enough. He's real mad at me now because he's like, Tanner's ERA is all fucked. You didn't even win the matchup. No. But congratulations on winning your first Pod Bowl. The good thing about a 12-team league is we'll see each other in a few weeks again.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I'll get a little revenge there. Our next matchup was Almar Net versus Bose. That was 62% of Bose over Almar Net, and we actually had our first of 3 upsets on this one, where Almar Net had a pretty sizable win of 526 to 444 or 440 over Bose, with a really solid performance there.
Yeah, damn, that was a huge upset. Honestly, I love seeing this, and obviously we'll get to the rest of the matchups. The league is so even, in my opinion. We
did a good job drafting. I'm impressed by the ball knowledge of everyone, that there were no just those awful draft picks or everyone. They did a good job with their drafting. Yeah, the league's even. Any matchup does kind of feel like it could go either way. Speaking of matchups that could go either way, I mean, when Prius dropped a 200 burger on Monday, I was like, pack it out. This one's done. He ended up losing by almost 100 points to Mike, 635 to 560 there, and it did come in with Prius expecting to beat out Mike. Mike is definitely a team we're gonna talk about a little bit. His team was I had some suspicions a couple weeks ago that he might have something special cooking there, and it looks like that might be the case.
Yeah, his batting lineup is absolutely insane.
It's crazy.
And we'll get to a couple of the trades that got made later. Yeah, he is definitely going to be a force later on in this league.
Yeah, looking like some playoffs for Mike, even if perhaps not for his Mariners. In 10 versus Big Peach was our next matchup. Peach came in with about a 65% chance to take down in 10, and that did end up being the case. It was about a 50-point difference, 456 to 404 of Peach over in 10.
Yeah, that was crazy enough. That was the second closest match of the week besides our game, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know last week we were saying it was a lot closer matches. This a lot of blowouts.
A lot of blowouts for sure.
Some underdog blowouts, even crazier.
Which is cool to see. Speaking of underdogs, it's our third upset of the week. Serial Chillers versus Hideki. It was projected close. I'm so sorry. This was not an upset. It was projected close with 54% of Hideki over Serial. I mismarked that on my sheet. So it did end up being the case, but quite a bit bigger than was expected. 550 to 379, and
200 points.
Jesus. Here we are. No more undefeated teams. That's another, like, the season's in gear now. Everyone's got their first L under the belt. So
love it.
I love it. And then our last matchup was JMC versus Oki. Oki was projected 56% to win over JMC. And this was, I mean, the blowout of all blowouts. We had 570 to 329 for Oki over JMC there. So
I know we were talking about Oki last week too, about, he had just lost Steele for the rest of the year. Yep. And, he was obviously, I think he was 0-2. Going into this week. And he's able to find his first win. So love to see that.
Big response. Yeah. Definitely looking for JMC to bounce back a little bit next week against Bose. That's a good chance for him.
Yeah.
The standing segment is next. We'll get to look. Things have mixed up quite a bit. Obviously, last week Serial was up in first place. That's been taken over by Hideki. This first group is all 3-1. It's Hideki in first, Mike in second, and then Serial Chillers in third. All those 3-1 teams really bunched up here with the 2-2 teams. This is kind of what we were talking about last week, how those head-to-head matchups really matter. We have Al Martinet, and then Bose, Big Peach, you, Ace, and then me, Zang, and finally Oki. So, those last three, you beat me, I beat Oki. That's the, the difference in three standing spots. So those head-to-head matchups are really important.
It's going to be so much fun coming into the year.
Oh, when we get around to playoff time, we have to look back. Oh my God, it's going to be incredible. And then finally our 1-3 group, they do all have just one win. We've got in 10th, Flaming Prius in 11th, and then JMC down in 12th place. So we're going to move on quickly to our best bats. I do want to give a quick honorable mention to Austin Hayes. He had a decent week, but then he scored 13.2 in the blowout on Sunday. He was in the top 5 batters. Chose to pick somebody else over him because I think I saw the Orioles had 2 position players pitch, and let's give some props to some other guys. So we have Bryce Harper with 53.5 points for Oki. He had an 11.3 and then 13.4 versus San Francisco on Tuesday and Wednesday, and it's really solid through the rest of the week. Fernando Tatis, he had 52.9. For Al Martinet, he kind of had the bookends there, an 18.9 versus Chicago to start the week, and then 13.2 on Sunday Night Baseball against Houston to kind of finish it off strong. And rounding out our top 3, we got Pete Alonso, who has 47.1. That was for Mike. He had 11.6 at Minnesota on Tuesday, and then 13.1 versus St. Louis on Saturday. A few negative points in there, but, then also a couple of those sprinklings. We've talked about Pete Alonso's profile before.
Yeah, he's a very hit or miss, but when he's on like this, it outweighs the strikeouts he's going to give you. So
yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's pretty cool to see some those big names at the top. I mean, you're talking about best bats. You got Bryce Harper, Fernando Tatis, Pete Alonso. That feels like things.
Known power hitter Dylan Moore.
Yeah, and then speaking of whom, Demo, we got him over here. 39.5 for Hideki. He had a really big performance that kind of boosted him up with 17.2. That was on 2 home runs at Cincinnati on Tuesday night, but solid rest of the week to kind of carry him through into 4th place there. And then this is who Austin Hayes was bumped for. Jonathan Aranda. I might be a little bit biased because I saw him play this week. This dude is legit. I mean, he looks incredible. He had one of those really solid across the board weeks, 8.8, 10.1, didn't play for a day, 4.3, 3.8, 10.4, and then 2. So even sitting a day, he still made it, into that top 5, 6 numbers. And that was against Boston and then New York. So did want to give Aranda some shout outs there, the Tampa Bay infielder.
Love to see it.
Yeah. A little insight into how we do this. We put together the form near the beginning of the week and then kind of fill a few things in as they go. And typically on Sunday morning, I'll kind of fill in the pitchers and batters and really need to adjust them here or there. But for the most part, they kind of stay the same. And Sunday morning, I was thinking, boy, this is great. We got all the good hitters, these big names, and we got all these big pitchers. We got Paul Skeens, Skubal, Yamamoto, Wheeler. And then I checked tonight and psych. It's all different guys. So, that's okay. Give those guys shout outs. They were leading right up until Sunday, but we got some pretty cool names on this list. I'm excited to dive into them. Quickly cover these top 3, starting off with Jake Irvin for Al Martinet. He had 69.5 points, 2 30-plus performances, 37.4 at Pittsburgh on Tuesday, with 7 shutout innings and 6 Ks, and then a 32.1 at Colorado on Sunday. Only 6.1 innings and 2 earned there, but 7 Ks as well. And that second performance is more impressive to me, I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, man, Dodgers, it was another kind of weird week for us. But yeah, 7 shutout innings, 4 Ks, only giving up 2 hits. Sucked it was in a loss, but it wasn't able to convert those W points. Offense kind of let him down there.
Yeah, and that's Tyler Malley down there, who's our second one.
Oh my God, I'm so
that's
sorry.
Okay. Oh, no worries.
Got ahead of myself.
Segue. Malley had 66.6 points for Mike this week.
Jake Irvin in Colorado, though, yes, absolutely, incredibly impressive. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no. I mean, hey, anytime we talk about those parks, Colorado Athletics and Tampa, those are putting up a good performance there is always impressive. As Ace alluded to, we did see Malley pitch against Los Angeles, the Dodgers, on Sunday. 7 shutout innings, 4 Ks, like you said, only 2 hits. It wasn't a loss, but 1-0 loss that the bullpen gave up. So really impressive against that offense, obviously. And then he did start out the week on Tuesday with 35.2 against the crosstown Anaheim Angels, if you will. 6 shutout innings and 9 Ks. Really cool to see out of Malley, a guy I know the Rangers signed as he was one of those sort of like he was recovering from TJ and then they get another year. And so far, results have been awesome for him.
Yeah, they definitely need it. Offense obviously had kind of a bum day today, but you really expect that offense to be producing most of the time. So you just need the pitchers. And
And I mean, as a guy who, just kind of posted before that TJ, that's, I think, really valuable in a rotation that's got some of those, I guess you could call them glass cannon type pitchers, really high potential, but
led by none other than Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, I mean the archetype for those. Max Fried is our third pitcher for Oki. 65.4 points. He has been, in my opinion, obnoxiously good to start the year, and that's totally unbiased, as you all know. Starting off on Tuesday, he had 29 points versus Kansas City, 6.2 innings, 2 earned runs, and 7 Ks, and then he wrapped up the week this weekend at Tampa Bay, one of those real bandboxes we talked about, with 36.4 innings, 7.2 shut, just 2 walks and 2 Ks. This was the one where he had I think a no-hitter going through the 5th or 6th, and then they reversed it because they changed like a hit to an error or an error to a hit. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I don't like that. That's crazy. You can't be doing that.
That's awful, man. I feel like there's no reason, especially if like I don't know. This may sound stupid, and this may sound like maybe it's a contemporary young person thought. Maybe I'm going to have some old geezer yelling at me, telling me, no, it's not how the game is supposed to be played. I feel like at some point, like, once the game is far enough after the call or whatever, and he's still throwing the no-hitter or perfect game, whatever it is, he just got it, You
just got to let it go, yeah.
Why are we retroactively... The only one we should be retroactively changing is...
Galarraga,
thank you. I couldn't think of the name. Yes, that is the only pitcher that has any case for it, because it was literally the last out. I'm going to go on a rant, but sorry.
No, but I agree with you. And look, I mean, Max Fried has been, I think he's led the league in ERA for the past like 3 or 4 years. Like he is, I mean, we all know he is a great pitcher, but I mean, he is a great pitcher and obviously doing, really good things there for the Yankees. Our next one is an interesting case. This was a pitcher that was picked up on Monday. Put up 58 points for the week. That was for the 4th best. And then just as we were getting ready for the podcast, was dropped. That's Merrill Kelly, who is owned by Mike for this week. Put up 34.2 at Miami to start the week on Tuesday with 6 innings, just 1 earned run and 9 Ks, and then finished off today on Sunday with 23.8 at the Cubs. 5.2 innings, 1 earned run, and just 5 Ks there. He was removed early on, I think, with some soreness maybe in his calf, if I'm remembering correct. So I'm guessing the drop has to do something with that. But I have to say, it's a little surprising when we're seeing, one of the best pitchers of the week. That's often a guy you see held on to. But we'll get to hear a little bit more about Mike's pitching staff later. So.
Yeah, definitely interesting to see. There was a couple of questionable drops this week, in my opinion, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, definitely interesting.
Love to hear that. And then finally, we'll round out with Sonny Gray. He had 55.3 points for in 10. Started off with 35.4 on Monday versus Houston. 7 shutout innings, just 1 walk and 4 Ks. And then finished off the week on Sunday with 19.9 points and a loss to the Mets. At Citi Field, 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, just 1 walk and 6 Ks, but he didn't end up taking the loss and knocking those points down at all. So good to see the short king Sonny Gray, still thriving out there in St. Louis. We love that.
Cincinnati legend Sonny Gray.
Cincinnati legend, that's right. Head on over to our bench blunders now. We had a few interesting ones. Jackson Holiday is our first one on Wednesday for JMC. He put up 12.3 points on Wednesday. And I know JMC has definitely had some pretty serious stock in Holiday. So I can't imagine, as somebody who's been in this situation, I should say, when you got stock in a guy and then you leave him on the bench and he has a big day, that always stings a little bit. Another prospect, Cam Smith, who Al Martinet has got, he follows the Astros pretty closely, a 17.5 on Friday. Big performance there to be left on the bench.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially as somebody who follows the team very closely. We were talking about Mike last week with, what was it, Cal Raleigh?
It was, Luke Raley, I think.
Luke Raley.
Yeah.
Raleigh, Raley
boy. Yeah. We're just kind of climbing the ladder here with top prospects being benched. Dylan Cruz, 23.2 on Saturday for Big Peach. That is a tough loss. Thankfully, I think for him, he did end up winning the matchup anyway. But 23 points that can decide even some not super close matchups. So definitely,
I think he sent a picture in the chat too of something like Dylan Cruz has scored like 28 points or something all season long, and 23 of them came on Saturday. That's crazy.
That's nuts. Well, hopefully he puts it together. I gotta say, Cruz, I really like his profile. It's always good to see the Nats kind of getting back into gear now after the lull after their World Series. So hopefully he's kind of getting it together, and that could be a big piece for Big Peach moving forward. I mean, I know he's got a pretty solid outfield already with Yordan and Corbin Carroll and Lawrence Butler, but Dylan Cruz is, I think, a top 10 prospect in the game, has the potential to really kind of elevate that. And even if it's just, trading people in and out, that's pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. I think his value is going to continue to rise. Also, I'm going to let you in another little side note. Dylan Cruz was offered to me by Big Peach in exchange for, who did he want from me? He wanted an outfielder or something. He wanted somebody, but it was basically to make the Cruz, because I have O'Neill Cruz. So it was supposed to make the Cruz show,
the Cruz trio. That's right.
Yeah, but it just wasn't meant to be. Also, another side note, I don't know how this wasn't included, but I feel obligated at this point. I had Bowden Francis from the Toronto Blue Jays sat for one of my days against you.
Oh, is that right?
I opted in Martin Perez. Martin Perez got me negative 6.4. Francis scored 26.7.
Yeah, he got kind of fucked up by the sun.
Yeah, so that was a brutal day. I still won the day in points, but I thought that was going to cost me.
That would have been a big topic coming into this week if somebody had hit a home run at the game I was at today.
Yeah.
Oh,
bummer.
That
Bummer.
Hoppy strikeout when it should have been a grand slam is haunting me once again. And then finally on Saturday, Gunnar Henderson was sat by Oki. And what's going on there, man? I mean, Gunnar Henderson, come on, we got to get him in the lineup. Although I think if I'm remembering correctly, he's got some pretty solid infield as well. I know, he's got Machado and Altuve and some other guys there. So you can understand setting from time to time, but get Gunnar Henderson in there. That's a good start. Wasted waivers. We had a couple of interesting names to start off with our batters. And Manuel Valdez, old friend from Boston, against Washington and Cleveland, put up some pretty solid numbers. An 11.2, -1 on that second day, but then 5.3, 2.3, 12.5, 8.3, and just 0.8 on that last day. He's an interesting guy where he's definitely got some power and a decent hit tool, but is an absolute butcher in the field, and he's got a little more swing and miss than you'd like. So, hey, if he's putting it together in Pittsburgh, that's nice to see. And if you're in need of some first base or second base, that can be an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's somebody that if somebody you have on your team goes down with injury, he has that multiple first base, multiple infield eligibility. So I think he'll be somebody that kind of floats around on a lot of different teams this year, especially this next guy. I think he's somebody that'll absolutely float around teams because he's about as hit or miss as they come.
Big Rhys Hoskins, that's right. 39.3 points against Detroit and then the Athletics. When he signed this contract with Milwaukee, I thought it was a great fit. And it's been a little bit hit or miss, but the hits have been the hits have been hits. You know, he had an 11 in there, an 8.4, and a 17.1 to close out the week. Really solid week for Reese there. And so, if you're in need of some power on the corners at the DH, he can be a great fit there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And then we get to our pitchers. Landon Roop is our first one, San Francisco starting pitcher. He had just 13.7 at Philly on Monday, but then 32.4 at Anaheim on Saturday night last night. So solid performance from Roop there. And, especially I think pitching at Oracle, which is pretty pitcher friendly, he could be a name to keep an eye on if you're in need of a injury fill-in or anything like that. And then Bailey Falter, it's pretty cool to see him on this list. This was actually just on one start, 34.4 points versus Washington on Wednesday. So, not much that could have been an indicator there, but that's a big chunk of points left on the waiver wire there for Falter. So that's pretty cool, again, to see some good stuff happening in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, definitely see if he wants, definitely going to see if he gets picked up or not.
That should be interesting. So speaking of which, I'll ask my usual question when we get to wasted waivers. Who do you see as probably getting picked up this coming week? Who might be showing up here again?
Man, I think Landon Roop is a really interesting one here. I think, the Angels have kind of been, I don't want to say they've been hot, but they've definitely been
it's been warm.
Yeah, a bit warm, a bit singeful,
very least, yeah.
Yeah, I think, they're somebody they're a team that's gonna surprise a lot of people this year. So seeing that kind of performance against them is always good. And like you mentioned, pitching at Oracle Park is a very pitcher friendly park. And then obviously, both these games were on the road, so I think he'll have a lot more value as they kind of play some more home games.
Definitely, yeah. Roop is a great pick. I'm going to lean Rhys Hoskins. That would have been my other one. 3 games of the season really, I think, offset the way we're looking at Milwaukee. And again, we're probably not looking at that top Rhys Hoskins in, 19, 20, 21, where he was with Philly, but he's still, a really solid hitter with a lot of power. And this is a guy that you're kind of cycling in your DH spot or your first base spot, kind of as the matchups go. He can, I think, be a really valuable piece for a lot of teams who need that. So I could see him finding a home sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we were talking about the Brewers last week a little bit too, and kind of like how they're competing. They're right there with the Cubs, just 2 wins behind them.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to see for the Brew Crew. I always have a soft spot for them. Yeah, they deserve it for sure. And yeah, I mean, if they really do pick things up, I could see Hoskins definitely being at the middle of that. All righty. Well, I think it's time to head over to Trade Mania in the transaction tracker. I will neither confirm nor deny the rumors that I did get Trade Mania started as content fodder for the podcast. I won't confirm or deny, but do think about who got all these trades started.
Neither will I.
Yeah. No. But our first trade, this came out right at the end of, or at the start of the week, pardon me. We were talking about at the end of the week. But I traded Nolan Shanuel from the Angels, their first baseman, and the Giants left fielder Elliot Ramos over to Almar Net for Detroit's first baseman Spencer Torkelson, Giants starting pitcher Jordan Hicks, and then Toronto's number 2 prospect. He's number 84 for MLB, Trey Yesvage, I believe his name is pronounced. So as a kind of an outsider, what are your thoughts here? And then I can talk a little bit inside from my perspective on everything.
Yeah, shocker to see you trade away a Giant, although I know you had a lot of them on your team before letting him go. You still have Jung-Ho Lee, and
I got Hicks back, so my race is still solid.
Well, yeah, you got Lee, and then you got you have who else? You have somebody else on there. Is it Willie Adames?
I got Willie Adames too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So a little surprising to see you ship away, but like you said, you got one in return. Mm-hmm. But I think that Torkelson pick there, that's a big one. I really like him. He's starting to play up to his draft status a lot more, so that's always good to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that was Torkelson was the piece for me. That's where these conversations started. We've talked a lot on this show so far, just about sometimes kind of clicking for guys. I mean, Torque, he came in the league young, but we forget this guy was drafted as sort of the successor to Miguel Cabrera, not just in being a Detroit first baseman, but in the sense that he is a big guy who has power, but also just like an unbelievable hit tool. This is not like a huge swing and miss hitter. He's, raw and hitterish and really just kind of has the tools. And I can't say I watch a lot of Detroit games, but from what I have watched, it looks real to me. Look, this has the potential to blow up in my face. Sean Newell's a great bat to ball guy. He's been putting up really solid numbers. And Elliot Ramos has really cemented himself kind of as the leadoff hitter out there in SF and puts up solid numbers and had a really hot start to the year. Cooled down a little bit, but I drafted both of those guys with mid-round picks, and I think I saw Torkelson was a 26th round pick for Al Martinet. So look, it's entirely possible this is a little bit of a hot streak for him, and he cools back down. And then I just gave up two teens, early 20 round picks for Torque, but I do have to say I'm feeling pretty good about Torque. And then Jordan Hicks is solid. Obviously, he throws gas, and he's got pretty solid stuff. And something I really liked about Trey Yesvage, he obviously has the pedigree being on that MLB Top 100 list, but he's pretty far away, which is nice for me. I have a lot of prospects. I think this is the case with a lot of us right now as we're starting, but a lot of these guys who are in AAA or at the top of AA pushing AAA. And so it's nice to have a guy he was drafted 20th overall just this past year. So I got a few years to stash him, and I don't have to make any, tough roster decisions too soon.
Yeah, speaking of minor league players and guys pushing AAA into
go our second
next trade.
Yeah, so this was our second big one that really dropped. We had Mike sending Max Muncy, the Dodgers' first prospect, and MLB 28 catcher Dalton Rushing. And then Tampa Bay's number 2 prospect, he's number 47 on MLB. It's first baseman Xavier Isaac, and Washington's catcher Kaibu Ruiz. Over to my co-host Ace for St. Louis's Nolan Gorman, second baseman, and then right fielder Seiya Suzuki. So before we start, I have to put my hands up and admit yet another boomerang instance here. Xavier Isaac is not the slapdick. That is Xavier Edwards, who currently plays for the Miami Marlins. It came to me 2 or 3 days later. I was like, "Are you sure that's the guy Snell was talking about?" And in fact, it wasn't. Further proving how I will just, I'll never be the John Heyman of our Discord. And I mess everything up. So I'll never be the passive. Pardon me. There we go.
Yeah,
I'm doing it live on air.
Excuse me.
I'll definitely never be the passive of the Discord. I might be Heyman, although I don't get as mad when people accuse me of spreading rumors. And
I am the Ace Passan.
You are absolutely Ace Passan. So my apologies for boobing it once again there. But solid trade here. I mean, you pulled in, I think, a lot of young talent in Isaac and Dalton Rushing there. And even sort of a current catcher in Keibert Ruiz. And you obviously shift out some pretty big pieces. Nolan Gorman's a solid one of those kind of scrappy meat and potatoes St. Louis guys we've been talking about. And Seiya Suzuki obviously being the really big name there. Tremendous hitter in Chicago. But it's definitely, it's a little bit of a quality for quantity type trade. So do you want to talk through a little bit how you kind of came about deciding to send a top guy like Seiya Suzuki for a pretty big package like you got back from Mike?
Yeah, so I definitely kind of took a look at my roster earlier this week after our last show, actually, and I very quickly realized that I was not set for the future at all. And a lot of my guys that I had were on the very older side, especially had one injured pitcher as well that we'll get to in the next trade that I also shipped away. But yeah, this trade was just to get younger at a lot of my different positions. Obviously, I loved Seiya, but he is in his 30s. And Nolan Gorman, he is a great player too, gets a lot of steals. So a lot of value that I'm shipping out, but, Dalton Rushing, obviously one of the top prospects, like you mentioned, number 28, the Dodgers' top prospect. So, yeah. A little bit of hometown love for him.
Of course.
Xavier Isaac, number 47. So, getting 2 top 50 prospects was, I thought was pretty solid in my opinion. And he just absolutely mashes home runs. So I'm really hoping that can translate into, the majors. And obviously, Kuiper Ruiz, another former Dodger,
yeah.
in a way. Yeah, so, maybe I just love Dodger players, but, I think it was important to get younger at catcher. Obviously, I have Salvador Perez. Who knows how many years he'll be playing at a higher level. And I do have Wilson Contreras, who's a little bit on the younger side, but he's been struggling mightily lately.
And probably won't have catcher eligibility after this season.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of had to prepare for that as well. And Kuiper Ruiz is a very solid piece. I have a lot of Washington players now, I'm realizing. Obviously, Luis Garcia, James Wood, and now Kuiper Ruiz. I also have Kyle Finnegan on there as well. So maybe that's just a testament to how good the Nats have kind of turned their team around. And we'll get to another Nationals player that was traded later on in these.
Absolutely. That one may have surprised me most of all. I did actually. Big thanks to Mike, who sent in kind of some of his thoughts for these trades. So I'm just going to read out a little bit what he was thinking. He talked about really needing a right fielder in Suzuki making sense because obviously you were looking for a catcher with those sort of older guys you have, and then some high-end prospects. So talked about maybe Bellinger going back and forth, Muncy going back and forth, neither of you really biting. Then he asked for Victor Scott, bat to ball, speed type guy.
Yeah, that was a tough
understandably, you don't want to give up, him and Suzuki. So we did kind of come around to, Rushing and Ruiz for Suzuki and Gorman. Then you asking for another prospect.
We went back and forth.
Yeah, Manuel Rodriguez was out there, Brady House was out there, and settling on Xavier Isaac. So he replaced them with Felinin Celestin, which is that's
what
an awesome name. And then Noble Meyer there. So two more, top 100 prospects that ranked a little bit lower than the two he sent out, but, still replacing with some solid stuff. So the way Mike said he was kind of looking at it is, it was basically Ruiz for Suzuki and Gorman, which is for him a no-brainer and understandable. And, and honestly, like I think both sides did really well here. You ended up with a catcher for the present and probably a catcher for the future. I don't know if Rushing's going to stay a catcher or not with Will Smith there, but
Barnes is retiring though, so
that's true.
Like, very soon, I should say. I hope. I pray to God, please retire Barnes.
He's Kershaw's personal catcher, right?
And Kershaw not even pitching right now. So why don't we send him to AAA with Kershaw?
There you go. Send him to Tulsa.
No, man.
Yeah, no, but I really do. I think both sides made out well. I mean, obviously, like Mike said, he does still have some of that top 100 prospect type guys, although obviously not of the caliber with your guys like Rushing and Isaac now. So it's solid stuff, and I think you definitely did a good job of setting yourself up for the future. Speaking of some more future stuff, you acquired Toronto's number 4 pitching prospect, Ricky Tiedemann, from JMC for Boston's Tanner Houck, who was immediately dropped, and then New York Yankees ace Garrett Cole, who is, as we know, recovering from Tommy John surgery. Was he? No, he would not have been hurt. He wouldn't have had Tommy John when you drafted him. It's a stupid question. That happened during spring training. So that was a pretty big draft loss for you.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I think I took him in the 8th or 6th round, something like that. Took him pretty early on, and was hoping to get at least a couple of good seasons out of him. Unfortunately, it was not the case. And I did trade him to another Yankee fan, so obviously there was that connection with him, and kind of same thing. I just wanted to get a little bit younger. Tiedemann is somebody who I think will come up kind of slowly, but hopefully expecting to see him maybe at the end of this year and into beginning of next year. He did undergo Tommy John surgery last July, so recovering from that. But yeah, I think just with the other starting pitchers I had, I obviously have Yu Darvish and Snell on the IL right now. Martin Perez is as well, but he's not somebody to look at long term. Ronaldo Lopez is on the IR, so I do have some guys that I'm liking for next year, and obviously Pivetta, Eovaldi, Wheeler have been really good for me to start this year. So I liked where my starting pitcher position was at, and I felt confident enough to make this move and kind of prepare for the future a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, this is an interesting one. Trading a team's ace who is obviously out for a while, for a team's number 4 prospect. But big lefty in Tiedemann, and I think there's a lot of runway for Toronto starting pitchers in the next few years as we see guys like Gossman and Bassett, their contracts come off the books. Like there's probably a runway for, a guy like him to really take a spot in that rotation. So solid bet there. And, definitely a little bit of a gamble. We'll see about Tanner Houck. He had a decent outing today against the White Sox. He's a little bit of an enigma, but I do think with a little tweaking, he might have the chance to figure some stuff out. So he maybe want to keep an eye on the wasted waivers segment if he doesn't get scooped up too soon.
Yeah, well, when he gave me negative 28 points, that's grounds for automatic drop in my opinion.
Go, yeah. Get his ass out of town. That is, I can't blame you there. I might not have even had the stomach to keep him on my roster if that happened. I mean,
granted, I still came back and won, but that is just unforgivable.
But that's pretty bad. And then our next one is another Yankee trade where Mike sent their second baseman Jazz Chisholm over to Al Martinet for 2 players, Phillies third baseman Alec Boehm, and then Arizona starting pitcher Brandon Pfaadt. This is a really interesting trade. Before I talk over kind of Mike's thought process, I'm curious what your thoughts are, kind of who's coming out. I don't know if we have to say winner, but who's immediately reaping more value, especially with these all being current major league guys.
Yeah, I think this one really just comes down to Brandon Pfaadt and how he performs. I think if he can give Mike some solid innings of work. Obviously, we know that Arizona offense is pretty stout, so just that potential to, maybe you don't have a great pitching day, but even you still can get the W and get those W points, from your offense having your back. So I think that's, solid upside for Mike there. I think obviously Chisholm is better than Alec Boehm given, where they bat in the lineup. Chisholm obviously gets to bat at Yankee Stadium for 81 games. So there's that aspect to it as well. So I think this trade will really come down to how Brandon Pfaadt performs.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, to me, it really kind of depends on how Boehm performs, I have to say. And that's a little bit looking into Mike's thought process here. But, Boehm had an atrocious start to the year, so obviously his value is pretty low. And Mike told me that he actually never really wanted to have Jazz. He wasn't super interested in, but he fit a need at draft time, so he ended up taking him. Then after getting Suzuki, he kind of looked at his lineup and realized he's got top catcher, number 1 catcher, number 1 first base, number 1 second base, number 1 shortstop, number 5 left field, number 5 shortstop, number 4 right field.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, when we wonder, geez, how did Mike win that lineup? Well, or that matchup, that's lineups are pretty solid. And that's, as he said, again, without Julio really doing anything for him. And he does have a few injuries to rotation between, Kirby, Jared Jones, Luis Garcia. Pfaadt, as you said, is a guy who just kind of throws strikes. He gets ground balls. He's young. His body isn't the type that'll really break down based on the type of pitches he throws. And so the way he sort of phrased it to me is that, Boehm, he believes Boehm and Jazz are going to finish similarly by the end of the year, relatively close in scoring, in which case he basically got Pfaadt for free, which is, if it is the case, a huge get. It's interesting to me. It really is. Jazz is definitely a bigger name than a player of fantasy performance. And I will say there's a lot of hate for Jazz. I actually really like the guy. He feels in a lot of ways very authentically himself. And yes, that is kind of corny sometimes, but he is, I think his outgoingness is actually very good for the game. He is by far the most likable player for me on the Yankees right now. But and he's shown those flashes, especially since he got to a competitive environment in New York, that have just been electric. And you see the pedigree. I mean, he was traded 1-for-1 for Zach Gallen back in the day by Derek Jeter. This guy, he obviously has the tools. And there are other times, the past couple of weeks, where he's really slowed down quite a bit, and he has not looked like that. And Alec Boehm obviously starting the year so awful, but he's really shown himself to be a pretty solid hitter in the past. So, it's a fascinating trade in my opinion. I think a lot of it depends so much on where Boehm ends up. If he continues to be kind of middling, then I'd say Jazz for Fott is a pretty even trade. If Bohm kind of picks it back up, and the way Mike kind of phrased it is he may just be going through his worst stretch of the year right now, get it out of the way, and then, kind of kick it back up into gear. And if that's the case, I think Mike kind of made off like a bandit here. But, with so many of these, only time will tell.
That's the toughest thing with these trades so early in the season. It's like you don't really know if guys are just going to be horrible this year or if they're just in a really bad slump. And, you sell on their value now, and who knows? And, maybe before the All-Star break, these guys are in the All-Star game, and you're like, well, I just screwed myself.
Shit. I mean, don't look now, but last 4 games, 5.6, 3.7, 4.6, 4.4 for Alec Bohm. So he's already maybe the magic juice is just being on Mike's roster. I'll need to ask him to add a bunch of Red Sox, really get the guys going, trade him over. And our last trade of the week, I have to say, this was the most surprising one to me. This is a big swing by Bose, who traded Mackenzie Gore over to Al Martinet for Colt Keith, second baseman for the Tigers. Colt Keith. As Big Peach always gets me saying it like Steve Holt from Arrested Development. And then Baltimore's closer, Felix Bautista, the Mountain. So as we've talked about kind of, replacing in and out, if you do look at it in this way, with the last trade, with trading Alec Bohm and Brandon Pfaadt for Jazz Chisholm, in this way, Al Martinet kind of got Mackenzie Gore and Jazz Chisholm. So he did replace that starter spot, and Gore has been absolutely off to a tear to start the year. I think he appeared on our potent pitchers list at one point, if I'm remembering right.
I think it was last week, yeah.
Yeah. And, again, one of these guys, top prospect, traded for Juan Soto, and looks like he's really putting it together. But has not in the past, kind of like we were talking about with...
Wait. I don't think he was traded for Juan Soto.
Oh, he wasn't for Soto?
No, he came from us.
Oh, he did?
He was Trey Turner. He wasn't the Trey Turner trade.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, because we sent Gore from the Dodgers. Yeah, because he was with us.
I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. It said he made his MLB debut with the Padres in 22.
Oh my god!
I think he was over there.
Who am I thinking of?
Dude, Josiah Gray.
Josiah Gray, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh my god!
There were so many big trades between Washington and the NL West.
That's right. That's right. He was with the Padres.
Can't blame you. Yeah. But yeah, again, big prospect guy, and has not put it together up until this year. Really has it so far. Is it going to continue? I don't know.
I think that's what Bose is kind of like. I don't want to say hoping for, but kind of hoping for. He's trying to bank in on that early value.
Absolutely.
And obviously trying to trade for a hometown closer.
Of course,
never hurt anyone.
I mean, I'll be honest. Even if that doesn't end up being the case, Colt Keith, solid bat who bounces between second base and first base. Talked about that flexibility a lot. And Felix Bautista, when he's on, I know he's kind of coming back from TJ, so he's still working back in, but he is, top 2, top 3 closer in the game. Definitely. So there is, I think, even if McKenzie continues on his track, this is still a really solid trade for Bose.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the long run, Felix will give him that value that he is hoping to get.
Absolutely. Well, this is a bit of an abstract question, but which one of these trades do you think kind of shapes the landscape of our league for the next couple years most? Which one do you think has the biggest impact?
Man, I mean, it has to be mine and Mike's. I mean, just so many prospects involved in it, and we're never gonna obviously at this point right now, Mike is the clear winner of that trade just because of the value. Obviously, Seiya and Gorman for Kyber, that's insane value. But if Dalton Rushing, turns into what he's supposed to be, and then same with Xavier Isaac. And the thing is here, these are two prospects from two of the best farm systems in baseball. So, they are coming from solid teachings, and I think they can definitely provide, some value for me in the long run.
Definitely.
Obviously this is something we want to run for years and years. So we'll see just how valuable they are for me. And we mentioned Seiya is a little bit older, so he could definitely. Mike is definitely on the win now mode. We'll just say that Mike is gunning for championships
with that lineup as he should be. Man.
Yeah, 100%. So no, love lost for. I think Mike made the absolute right trade, and I needed to get younger. So you know, we see this all the time in regular league.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, that is obviously one that I think has, with so many prospects, potential to really, really kind of shape things. I've got my eye on that last one. I mean, Martinet getting a potential ace, Bo's potentially getting a starting second baseman and one of the best closers in the game. Whether or not, either of those parties kind of fall off, these are all young guys, I think all still in their 20s. So guys that are, going to be contributors for at least the next 5 to 6 years. So I can see that one definitely having some ripple effects.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll just see with Felix, like you said, he's coming back from TJ, so hopefully he's able to find, that magic he had before. And, this could potentially blow up in Bo's face if Felix, isn't the same pitcher.
You can't quite get there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, this was a super fun week, I have to say, just, going through all the trades and seeing them all pop up. I hope the trade deadline looks kind of like this. If it's anything like this past week was, that is going to be just a ton of fun to cover. We'll finally just wrap up with next week's notes, take a little peek at our matchups for next week. We'll start off with that one we mentioned before, Bose versus JMC. JMC definitely looking to bounce back after, the unfortunate points discrepancy. I do just on the podcast. I want to thank JMC. You were very understanding about that, man. I know that's tough to see, a win kind of pulled out from under you like that. I do take the blame on, messing up that setting. So I just shout out to you for, not pushing back and just offering to kind of go with it as the way it was. Shout out. So definitely looking to bounce back. And his Bo is 55% projected over him. But close one there, just in the 50s. Hideki versus Inten is our next matchup. Hideki is projected to take down Inten, similar to, sort of following with where the standings are, with Hideki there up at the top and Inten down in 10th place. Our third matchup is Oki versus Mike. Mike is Oki versus Mike. Mike is 53% projected over Oki sooner. We'll see how that goes with that lineup of boppers that Mike has. Serial Killers versus me is our next one. 57% for me over Serial Killers, looking to hand him his second straight loss and hopefully get back into the win column myself. And then you versus Al Martinet, we are fifth matchup, 64% of him over you. Damn. But as I saw firsthand this week, you've got some thumbs. So it'd be interesting too. I think if I'm right, I think Mackenzie Gore should have 2 starts this week.
Oh,
if my timing's right. So we might get to see some of the payoff of that trade early on in this matchup. And our final matchup is Big Peach versus Flaming Prius. This one doesn't have a projection based on, I think, an invalid lineup somewhere. But just in terms of standings, I guess we can look at it. We do have Peach over Prius. Peach is in 6th place, and then Prius is down in 11th at 1-3. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you all again for making this a fun week with all those trades, and looking forward to another good one on Dynasty.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. It's definitely been fun. This league is, we say it every week, this league is going to be insane.
It's going to be so good.
Towards the end of this
season.
Good
that we keep saying that. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a good sign. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you this time next week.
Later, y'all.
You know what that makes you, Larry? Lollygagging.